New leaked Big Navi benchmarks show AMD beating the RTX 3090. Let's talk about it. Before that, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss another video. So just today, some benchmarks of what appears to be AMD's RX 6800XT graphics card were leaked out by Igor's Lab, Yuko Yoshida, CapFrameX, and WCCF Tech, which of course links to all these sources will be in the description below so you can get the full information. But in any case, these leaked benchmarks do point to Big Navi being extremely fast, and now I'm going to go ahead and take a look at a few of these benchmarks and then give you my thoughts on them. So starting off with the charts here shared over at Igor's Lab, who seems to have gotten very similar information to WCCF Tech, we can see here that it's actually laid out in percentage points instead of actual scores, which he later on took his own information and then converted it to scores. So if we take a look at these charts here, we can see here that the supposed RX 6800XT is actually beating the RTX 3080 by a significant amount in Firestrike Extreme 4K. It's actually 22% faster here, and that's a DirectX 11 title. Then taking a look at TimeSpy Extreme 4K, which is a DirectX 12 title, we can see here that it only beats the RTX 3080 by 3%, though it is still significant that it does win. And then taking a look at Port Royale 4K, which is actually a ray tracing benchmark here, the RTX 3080 is actually 22% faster. So those are some very interesting results, though I was actually kind of expecting to see something like this. I was expecting AMD's fastest cards to be faster than the RTX 3080 and not quite beat it in ray tracing. It looks like that's probably what we're going to get. But let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit more information here before I give you my full thoughts. Now, the next bit of information I want to go over comes from the Twitter leaker Yuko Yoshida, and the reason why I want to go over these results is because it includes an RTX 3090 versus the RX 6800XT, and this is very interesting because we can kind of get a feel for, is AMD going to be able to beat the RTX 3090, which is a $1,500 graphics card. So if they can get this card coming in well under $1,000, it's just going to make NVIDIA look silly. But in any case here, we have very similar results once again, where if we look at Firestrike Extreme, we can see that the RX 6800XT, which by the way, there is supposedly, from what I've heard, going to be an RX 6900XT. It seems like a lot of people are in agreement that a 6900XT probably does exist, and it's likely going to be an AMD exclusive with the full 80 compute units, whereas the 6800XT is probably going to be 72 compute units. So there might actually be something a little bit faster. But in any case, let's talk about this chart here where we see that the Navi 21XT 6800XT is actually a little bit faster than the RTX 3090, which again, that's very impressive. Now taking a look at Firestrike Ultra, it's actually only a little bit faster than RTX 3090, which is kind of interesting because although we don't know what CPU is being used, what we do know is that the NVIDIA AMP architecture doesn't really scale too well with resolution in terms of, it does very well at 4K, it doesn't do quite as well, it doesn't scale quite as well as Turing did at 1440p, and then it really doesn't scale as well as NVIDIA's previous architectures at 1080p, just simply due to the new architecture changes. So I was, expecting AMD to do a little bit better here, but it looks like, at least based on these results, that's not going to be the case. And then finally here we have TimeSpy and TimeSpy Extreme, which are DirectX 12 benchmarks. And here, surprisingly, Yuko's results show that it's actually a little bit slower than an RTX 3080. So that's very interesting. And, there are a little bit of conflicting results here, and there's definitely a lot more information that I just simply don't have time to go over in this video, but we'll definitely have to wait till the 28th to see some benchmarks from AMD, which we'll still have to take with a grain of salt, but I think that'll give us a more comprehensive look at where AMD's cards are likely going to land. But overall, taking a look at these results, if it does end up being true, and this is the RX 6800XT, which once again, there might be a card that's even faster than that. In fact, there probably is. But if it's true, then it looks like this card is going to be an absolute monster in DirectX 11. It'll probably still beat the RTX 3080 in DirectX 12. And it looks like it's probably going to lose with ray tracing enabled in DirectX 12. So, that's not completely out of the realm of possibility that this is going to end up being what happens because, AMD's architecture, although it is supposed to be very scalable, and in the past, AMD's been very, very good at DirectX 12. NVIDIA's new architecture actually scales very well in DirectX 12 because of the massive amount of FP32 cores. And, when NVIDIA changed to doubling the FP32 cores, I don't think they actually doubled everything in the core. So that's why in DirectX 11, you don't see super great scaling out of the Ampere architecture, whereas in DirectX 12, which utilizes those FP32 cores much better, you're seeing better results in DirectX 12. And so that's probably why AMD won't be, absolutely crushing it in DirectX 12 when compared to the Ampere architecture. But, I got to be honest with you guys, most of the games out there today are in DirectX 11. Even a lot of the newer games coming out are still in DirectX 11. So right now, that's definitely still the most important API to be good at, and so it's good to see that AMD will probably be winning there. But, you know, going forward, it looks like NVIDIA has a more forward-looking architecture with their wins in DirectX 12, and that's probably what I would expect to see even from AMD's own results that they'll likely be showing on the 28th, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed already, be sure to be subscribed so that you can be there when I do go ahead and actually live stream that event. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. I'd love to see you there. And also, if you made it this far into the video, be sure to like the video. But in any case, going more into DirectX 12, yeah, it looks like NVIDIA's got a better architecture for that, and definitely a better architecture for ray tracing, and that's kind of what I was expecting here because it's AMD's first foray into ray tracing. And to be honest with you guys, the ray tracing results that are shown here today are actually very impressive because a 2080 Ti is nothing to sneeze at in terms of ray tracing performance. It's actually pretty good. Now, in the past generation, I felt like if you had at least a 2070, you could kind of experience some decent ray tracing with DLSS. But anything below that, you know, I have a 2060 right now and ray tracing is a little bit iffy. So, you know, a 2080 Ti, that's not too bad. It's very exciting to see AMD land around there, but the question remains, you know, how are their drivers going to be? And then especially, do they have an answer for DLSS? Are they going to get that DirectML type of stuff working there that's in the Microsoft API for DirectX 12? We'll just have to wait and see what happens there. I really hope they do. I hope they have ray tracing support on day one, just like NVIDIA for these games coming out, like Cyberpunk, because that's going to be a huge driving factor to what GPUs people buy, because that's a huge game. So I hope they get that under the control. But, you know, this card coming in, if the price is right, which is, I think, the most important factor here, and they have availability, which is potentially even more important, and it's got that 16 gigabytes of VRAM, this could be a very, very tempting card because, to be honest with you guys, you know, if it comes in, let's say, at $650 and it beats an RTX 3080, on average just by a small percentage in DirectX 12, and it, you know, hammers it at DirectX 11, and it ends up being, you know, not too much slower in ray tracing, and it's cheaper, it's got more VRAM. I got to be honest with you guys, that's definitely the card I would go for as long as the drivers are stable, because I know that the 5700XT and 5700 had some serious driver problems for quite a while when they first launched, but hopefully at this point they've got that all ironed out. I know that the RDNA2 architecture is completely different, so I really hope they put a lot of the R&D into that, making sure that all those drivers are going to be working just absolutely perfectly on day one. I'd love to see that, but either way, I'm really excited to see what AMD has to show on the 28th. Again, make sure you subscribe for that live stream I will be doing. And, you know, even if the 6800 XT is the fastest graphics card they have, these results here, it doesn't get any faster than that. You know what? This is really impressive, and I think NVIDIA should be extremely worried, as this is probably the most competitive AMD has been in the graphics card market for a really, really long time. And I think NVIDIA made a big mistake going with Samsung 8nm, and they might actually end up losing this generation even with an RTX 3090 and having to like rush to 7nm next year to not look silly. Because I gotta be honest with you guys here, looking at these results right now, I think AMD's gonna win. But hey, that's just what I think. How fast do you think the 6800 XT and 6900 XT are going to be? I'd love to see what you have to say in the comments below, and of course, I'll see you in the next video. If you made it to the end of the video, be sure to drop a like. Every time you do so, NVIDIA and Intel drop prices. Also, if you want to see more, click here. You won't be disappointed.